Okay, we have hit that point. That's right, it's now time to talk business. Okay, so here we are back for the business part. This isn't that difficult. I guarantee you a little bit of knowledge is power here. One of the first things that we need to do is decide what our business structure is going to be. Will you be a sole proprietor, a limited liability company, or will you be a corporation? That's the very first step we need to take. Now, you can run everything just like you do as a sole proprietor, or an LLC can be taxed and handled like a sole proprietor would be or a corporation would be. And a corporation allows for things like partners, a little bit easier on the tax front. Now, it's very important to get your structure right from the start, especially since we are in 2018. It's very important to note that this is a very personal decision based on your tax experience. There is nobody who can put out there the limited liability company is right for everyone. Even I have a corporation because at one point I had a partner. So these things become a very personal choice. And so what you'll need to do is do a little bit of investigation in how you handle your tax situation and what might work well for you. The majority of artists that I know have formed a limited liability company. That seems to be the happy medium. Still easy on the taxes and the structure of it all, but a little bit more insulated than what sole proprietor under your own social security number would be. A corporation is a whole lot more work. So investigate those ideas just a little bit and decide which one is right for you. Again, I can't tell you what the right one is. I myself had to go with a corporation. You may have a partner in business. And that's something that only an attorney can help you decide or do a little investigation. Google is always your friend. But don't hesitate to get a little extra advice on this one. Honestly, sometimes we all need extra advice on things. I'm a big proponent of having somebody else do my taxes. Now, I sleep better at night, and I also learn some things as we go along in doing them. And that corporate structure or limited liability company or sole proprietor is the beginning foundation steps for how those taxes will be handled. It's something that you can make the choice on with just a little bit of knowledge. Now, I'm not going to tell you I have the answer for you. Clearly, I have not said I have the answer for you. This is one of those things that we will dive deeper into later, but I also believe it's one of those topics we need to have somebody else come in and have a conversation from a viewpoint that is legal or professional in the accountant way. I think that those things are important because I don't have all of the answers for you. I know what my situation is, and I know it worked out well for me, and I know what my options are, but it's because I've educated myself a little bit. I have included in the downloads section of Alpaca Paintbrush some helpful guides on which websites might help you in determining this. You need to ask yourself these questions as you go forward. How do I want to handle my taxes? How much work do I want my company to be? What am I most comfortable with? As you ask those questions and read through some of this, maybe you'll find some areas to do some further research on, or maybe you'll have your answers. Once you have your answers, then you can consider sites like LegalZoom for helping you set up an LLC, or getting some recommendations on who an attorney might be that could help you. I know I would have set up a limited liability company and I would have been wrong. I did, and I do still have an attorney that I consult with on some of these things because we all need extra help sometimes. Now, having said that, you might be saying, but Rosie, what is your business background? If you can't even answer this, well, my business background is 22 years working in healthcare in corporate America. 16 of those years were as the top manager answering only to the owner of a single company who had about $35 to $50 million in sales depending upon the year. We did contracting. I put together bids and RFPs. I helped out and oversaw some of the HR things like work comp. I took care of all of their analysis and things of that nature. I helped out with payroll and payroll analysis. So my experience is vast, but I'm still not that legal or professional opinion, and I want to make that very clear. There are always times we need more information. It's particularly true in 2018. See, artists have a particular problem where they could run into what's called or termed in the tax world as hobbyists. If we are showing a loss in our bookkeeping, with our income and outgo, or income and expenses, if we're showing a loss for too many years in a row, the IRS could determine that we are hobbyists versus an actual professional business. And in 2018, that's a scary place to be. They can actually take away the ability to count any of your expenses under the new tax code. I have just recently spoken with a CPA about this. See, there's opposing views on what the 2018 new tax laws really mean. Some places will tell you that this is amazing for artists and that we will really reap the rewards. But that's only true if we're not showing a loss for too many years in a row. So it's really important to know these things up front because this business structure absolutely makes a difference. And if you're only showing a loss, you really need to look at how you can make that loss into a profit or determine if you really should be acting as more of a hobbyist, which could lead you down a different path. There's nothing wrong with that path. Lord knows how many artists I know that are working other full-time jobs and things of that nature. We all have that happen to us. So for 2018, we need to be particularly aware that all of our business structures are in place and that we are set up to not be showing a loss at the end of the year. And again, that's several years running that the IRS is looking at, but they have the right to go back 5 years and look at your taxes to determine that. So everything you do has long-lasting consequences or good things. That's why getting our business structure right from the start or correcting it where we are now is really a very important step to take. The other thing is it leads us to banking and how we should handle our banking. Now, I'm going to say this twice. Our business should not commingle its income and expenses with our personal accounts. End of story. Once you have your business structure set up, you will then be able to open a business checking and savings account. You really can't until those things are done. I mean, they want the paperwork, which makes sense because how can you have a business checking or savings without having the business paperwork? So the first step is to file for that structure of business that you want. And then when you receive back all of the files of incorporation or the limited liability paperwork, you can then take that to your bank and open up a checking or a savings account for your business, which is actually something you should be doing. You should not be running it through your personal account, if at all possible. That takes us to bookkeeping. Once you have a bank account, it's really easy to connect it to QuickBooks to help you with your bookkeeping. Now, you don't have to use QuickBooks, but it is definitely one of the software programs out there. It will cost you probably about $15 a month. Their prices change kind of frequently, and you should know that their interface changes even more frequently. It is the program I use. However, I'll tell you, it could be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. Now, I have an Excel spreadsheet up on the downloads section for you to use. It has 2 tabs. One is for expenses, and it gives you the columns of information to fill in. And the other tab is for invoices, and it gives you the column of information to fill in. And you can keep track of it right from there. I have had CPAs tell me that it's a good method and that it works so long as, and this is true of QuickBooks too, you're entering everything in that you need to. That is very important. Also, you should be aware that doing good bookkeeping practices will save you money on getting your taxes done. See, you can't just take in a bunch of receipts to your tax person and not expect to get charged an arm and a leg. They actually want the information in a sorted fashion for what they need. And that's what the Excel spreadsheet will do. Now, also on the downloads, there's going to be a federal list of expenses that an artist can deduct. Now, this may not be an all-inclusive list, and you'll need to check with your state to see if it's complete, but it will give you an idea of what you can write off and what the limitations are. The other thing you should know is when we turn our taxes in, we're not writing off paint. We're not writing off those individual things. We're grouping them together in categories. And those categories are essentially what your CPA will want you to know, and it's what your bookkeeping program or Excel spreadsheet will do for you. It will group those things together in a nice, neat, tidy fashion. And what's great is it does the math for you. So unless you've typed something in wrong, you're going to be good to go. Once you have that, you can then start entering those items in for your bookkeeping. Now, we're not going into huge detail today. We're kind of connecting the dots. You decide on your structure. You file the paperwork. You open the bank account. You decide on your accounting method. And then from there, once you've done those things, and by accounting method, I do mean bookkeeping, sorry. Once you've decided those things, we can now look at all of the things that are happening within your business and how we can tweak them to your benefit. For example, if you have put in the cost of all of your supplies and you have put in the invoices for all of your sales, you can easily gauge if you're spending too much on supplies or maybe not charging enough. Maybe you went out into the world and found the midline price, but your materials are a lot more expensive. Maybe you will need to consider raising your prices, but the only way you can know this is to have a comparison point. That's just one of the things you can find out once all of this information is in your accounting and bookkeeping software, spreadsheet, whichever you decide. Now, there's so much more that you can find out. QuickBooks allows for a line of income, so you can separate out, acrylic paintings from oil paintings, or for me, photography versus paintings versus books versus consulting. There are lots of things that you can see there that will help you to make better decisions down the line. In the Excel spreadsheet, I've absolutely put a line of income column. Maybe you won't use it. You can always delete it, but just keep in mind that any changes you make, you should make at the clean break of a year. So either delete it right from the start or wait a year. See, we don't really know the things that are going to happen and that we might need later. And the other thing is to go back and look at all of your data and have it spread across 2 different philosophies. I had this column, I didn't have this column, or maybe I wanted to go from a spreadsheet into QuickBooks. Do it at the change of a year. It is much simpler to have one program to look at. It's kind of the same like if you decide you hate your bank. Don't change until the clean break of a year. If you feel you need to change really quickly, then at least do it at the first of a month. That will keep things a little bit more simple and easier for you to remember. Now, once we have all of these things into our accounting software or Excel spreadsheet, we need to kind of look at something called cash flow. Cash flow is really interesting for the artist. We might have 2 or 3 months with no income and then 1 month with thousands of dollars of income. Our income is not as stable as our expenses. Every month we know we have certain expenses going out that we have to pay. Excuse me. Things like some travel expenses or supplies or utilities for the cell phone or the internet. We have things like software programs like Photo Adobe or the Suite. We have all these different things that happen every single month, and that's going to be consistent. What will change month to month is we'll have some months where we need to spend more. For example, my web hosting happens once a year. That's an additional $176 a year that I need to pay in July. In July, I also have a membership for our art museum in Milwaukee. So that's an additional $85 that I need to pay. So by plotting out how our expenses happen, we can see that there are months that we need more income, but for the most part, it's fairly stable. We can't plot out our income like that. Income happens when it happens for an artist. Or does it? There's a lot we can do on income to help what we would call stabilizing the income. What we can do is have some things that provide income over time, such as I do for stock photography. I don't invest a lot of time in putting stock photography up, but here's the fact. I'm out shooting, and sometimes I'm shooting my artwork, which I might not use for artwork, but might work for stock. And so if I'm shooting it, it takes me an hour to put it up there, and over time, there are sales. When it hits a maximum amount or a minimum amount, it will pay out to me. That's a residual income, and it can help to stabilize income on a monthly basis. I also take on a little bit of consulting work here and there because that helps me to stabilize the income. There are things like that we can do, but for the most part, our big chunks of income are going to be sporadic. Maybe we have a show that we're going to be at, and it's going to be every weekend of the summer, and our income is going to be much greater during that time. But what happens in winter when it's not? That's cash flow. Our expenses have stayed the same or relatively the same, but our income fluctuates all over the place. Understanding cash flow is really important. In a bookkeeping sense, you have something called a profit and loss. That profit and loss will absolutely, that's my dog again. That profit and loss will absolutely take your total expenses and your total income over the year and come up with a bottom line. It'll either be a loss or it'll be a profit. And you can look at that and say, I can't believe I made that much money. It didn't feel that way. It just never seems like I'm getting ahead. And that's because of cash flow. And it's something we need to be really careful about. We need to understand our cash flow just as much as we do our bottom line. And that's where a budget comes into play. A budget is something that allows you to plot out expenses. So I don't have a download for you for this because it's very personal what things people want to track. I can tell you very simply, the top column going this way, leave one blank over here, is the months of the year. And this column over here is everything you might spend money on. And you simply plot out how much might you spend. And because they stay the same, you can copy and paste across the year. Okay? And then when you know there's bigger expenses, add another row in and put that in the months it belongs to. Your very bottom column will be a sum total of your expenses by the month. The very, very next row is going to be your projected income. Now, sometimes we absolutely know we have anchor income and we just add that in. And sometimes it's going to look like we're at a big fat loss. But that's the thing. That only happens when you first start using a budget. After time, what will happen is you notice that you can go in and it simply takes 15 minutes a week. I'm not kidding you. Once it's set up, it's 15 minutes a week. And plot and add in whatever other income you might need to that income line. And just keep doing that. Now, you're going to be aware of a couple of things that are really awesome. You're going to see moments where big income comes in, and then you're going to be able to allocate or plan on using that for the next couple of months of expenses. And it's going to give you a plan. See, what happens if we have no plan is all this money comes in and all that money goes out and we don't know how or where. But when we have a plan, we specifically, with intention, make decisions. Those decisions are going to be far better than the ones we make with no plan. Every week, 15 minutes, just kind of look at, are there unknown expenses that you have to add in for that month? Is there income you need to add going on down the line? It's really simple. Now, you're going to notice a couple of things that come out of this that are very cool. One, you're going to look at months where it feels short, and you're going to know that you need to probably look for some opportunities there. And now you know where to plan your opportunities. See, doing 5 shows in 3 weeks is just a bad idea. You're going to burn out and be cranky by the end of it. But if you can plot out the timing of doing the shows where the need falls, or the fairs or the showings, whatever it might be, you're going to find that you stabilize your income even more. And then maybe you're going to think even more forward and go 6 months ahead and realize, well, it would be nice to have the time in the holiday season, because that's a big buying time, to be in a show. Maybe I should go look now. I bet those book up fast. See, your budget is guiding you on a whole lot more than numbers. And the other thing is we find what we're looking for. So if we know we have a month that's a little lower and we know something needs to happen in that month to bring the income up, or in a quarter, now we're going to be looking for opportunities versus before we had no idea what was what, and the income comes in when it comes in and you do what you have to when that happens. So now you're going to be looking for opportunities or ways to increase income, and you're going to find them. We find what we're looking for. That's just a fundamental basic truth. I mean, if we're looking for bad things, we're going to find them. But if we're looking for ways to improve, we're going to find them. And again, once it's set up, it's 15 minutes a week, and you may even find that it's 15 minutes every 2 weeks. Honestly, I've gotten to a point, because I have done this for so incredibly long, that I really only have to look at it once a month. I'm pretty aware and I remember all of these things now. I mean, if you keep going over the numbers, over time, muscle memory hits in. So you'll find that over time, this actually takes less time. And that's very true of everything with the business of art. The business side of art really becomes a guiding light on other things, not actually involving making art. In fact, I like to say that making art and taking care of the business of art are two separate things. When you're making art, you don't need to think about any of this. Just go freely, fearlessly make that beautiful artwork that you do. And when it's time to take care of business, take care of business. Really consider these concepts as building blocks. We'll definitely do more videos down the line. Excuse me. We're going to deal with topics like insurance and hiring employees if you should decide to do that, and contract specific things. But for right now, we're taking care of those foundational things and elements that you need to be building upon. And maybe you're more advanced than that, but we're going to get there. I think that the upcoming videos will really dive deep into these individual topics. Taking care of the basics, though, is the first thing we need to incorporate. And maybe I've said this before. It's all about juggling. We throw in a ball and we learn to juggle 1, and then 2, and then 3. And pretty soon we're juggling all the balls. But you can't throw the balls all at a person at one time. Starting out with 10 is nothing but a disaster. So we're always about the building, the foundation, and building upon a really beautifully structured foundation. So go create your art fearlessly and go take care of business separately. You'll find that while the two complement each other, they don't have to interfere with each other. And that's, I think, one of the big fears that artists have, is that the business of it is going to interfere with the creative of it. And that is something you are in control of. Knowledge brings a lot of that power through. And understanding why the business actually helps you to have more time to create art is just huge. So take care of business, go check out our downloads, and in the next topic, we're hitting marketing. Do you see what happened there? Marketing is left to almost the very end. Think about that for a minute. All of these people telling you marketing is everything, and here I am leaving it to the end. Exactly why do you think that is? I'll let you consider that, and then we can get to the next making of the next video.